capital controls to me are a virtual certainty. And what that means is Canadians will not be allowed to take money or assets out of the country. It will be like the trucker convoy seizure. It won't be 2.0. It'll be like 10.0.
Marc Cohodes, my favorite outspoken online commentator, right here live in the flesh. How you doing, my brother?
Makes me feel good. I feel good. All good. Nice. I'm in California. It's nice out.
Yeah. It's Alberta. Alberta, I don't know what it is, whether it's the current political and economic environment in Canada, but something kind of stole our summer. We had a stormy, rainy summer, so it feels like summer just arrived for us.
That's okay.
So I wanted to follow up on our last conversation today. I, of course, follow a lot of what you have to say online. I think you are one of the people who really has it right pretty much all of the time. You've become kind of a bit of a North Star for me in terms of like figuring out the climate and what's happening. So at the end of our last conversation, we were talking about markets and where the markets were heading, and we were talking about tariffs. And you said, quote, it's a lot to do about nothing. Do you still feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. market since that has gone straight up. So Trump is two things. He's theatrical to get the most pop in the media through theatrics, and he's transactional. He's those two things, and he's the king. And the sooner everyone realizes it, and I'm not a Trumper, the sooner everyone realizes it, the better. And he can bully, at least for now, everyone around. He can especially bully around Arctic Mexico, aka Canada. And I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings ever on this thing, but you guys all live in Arctic Mexico. We'll get into the only chance you guys have, but he can sure push around Carney like a rag doll. And if you're listening to this and you're Canadian, where the light should go on is this whole elbows up routine was just a scam. I mean, they paid Mike Myers, who's essentially an American. He lives in the United States. They paid him with this elbows up campaign to get the voters riled up on this whole nationalist movement. And it turned out to be a lot to do about nothing. And however many months later, 4 to 6, he's on the elbows down. But what is crystal clear to me, and I'll say it real slow and I'll say it clear, whoever is running Arctic Mexico, whether it's the 20 families or Carnival Barker, capital controls to me are a virtual certainty. And what that means is Canadians will not be allowed to take money or assets out of the country. It will be like the trucker convoy seizure. It won't be 2.0. It'll be like 10.0. Because if you think about how Arctic Mexico is right now, you have the organized crime, which Sam has cold. He's had it cold. He has it cold. Those people pay no tax. Those people live in the country for free. It's like their playground. And through the reckless immigration policy, there's many of them who use Canada as their country club. They contribute nothing legitimate to the economy, nothing in the tax base. Then you have the 20 wealthiest families, the people who really run Arctic Mexico. They're in every tax haven known to man. This is the Morneau, Trudeau, that whole Laurentian bunch, if you will, they pay nothing into the system. All of their money is offshore. Then you have the Goldman Sachs of Canada, which is Brookfield. All those guys live and have their money in the United States. They're way ahead of the game. Brookfield is the Goldman Sachs of Arctic Mexico, which is essentially based in the US. So I think the highest bracket or highest rate in Canada is now 53%. You have people who can't afford food on one end. They're completely up against the wall. Then you have high earners, if you will, in the financial capital of Arctic Mexico, the GTA. And I talked to one guy, he said he's paid $20 million of taxes in the last 17 years, and he doesn't even know what his money went for. So all these people want to leave, and they will leave, but the government can't let them leave because they're responsible for the tax base. And at the same time, in this witch's brew, you have Danielle, the Queen of Alberta. She wants out because she's saying, why in the world are we paying $25 billion a year to Ottawa? What do we get? The answer, zero. That's what you get. You get zero because they think you guys are dumb. They think, you're not one of them. You're not French speaking. You're, blah, blah, blah. You get nothing. So there will be more and more of a movement for Alberta and Saskatchewan to leave. And it's going to really bring it all to a head. And this overlays with what Sam and I talked about pre-election. If Carnival Barker gets in, and he got in, that will hasten the decline. That will sort of seal the deal, if you will. And the United States, basically, they know the fentanyl game, which Canada and the Arctic Mexicans, they all denied. Sam ran something about the fentanyl czar telling the DEA he has no power or control. And this is on top of him writing, I think yesterday, about the RCMP spending all their time at Tim Hortons eating Timbits rather than doing anything. Mm-hmm. So between the RCMP, the money launderers, the fentanyl crowd, the drug traffickers, the people with big money already have it out of the country. What's going on with Alberta and Saskatchewan, to me, capital controls are a given. And my advice to anyone who lives up there is get your money out of the country before they lock you down. And they will lock you down. If they took all the money from the trucking convoy, they won't let you guys move your money. Mm-hmm. And I think this is just a flat out given, because I don't know if the wealthiest people decide to leave or move their money here or Europe or go anywhere. I don't know how you guys are going to make it go. I mean, Alberta finances Canada along with the high wealth taxpayers. Both won out. So how in the world do you solve this? You're not going to solve it through trade. You're not going to solve it through cozying up with Trump, because he knows how China already has control of it. The media is bought and paid for. It's so clear how they're captured. So this is playing out as bad or worse than I originally thought. I wish to come on here and say I was dead wrong, but I was dead right. And it's actually picking up steam on the fall apart side. It's picking up steam, and there is no leadership. There is none, because people don't know if they want elbows up. They don't know if they want elbows down. They don't know what they want. EB in BC is a disaster. His buddy in Manitoba, disaster. So you got Saskatchewan and you have Alberta. I mean, in the Maritimes, they won't even let you walk in the forest. I mean, they want to hit you with a $25,000 or $20,000 fine. I mean, it's so laughable. It's so laughable. It's tragic.
Yeah.
Right. And there are no fires there. There's no arson or anything. I mean, it's so ridiculous that this is where people are focusing on. It's crazy.
It really is. And there's a lot there to go on. So I want to start at the very top, because this relationship between Mark Carney and Donald Trump is interesting to me. I mean, obviously, the whole elbows up election campaign slogan was just that, a slogan. I think anybody with half a brain knew that once Mark Carney became Prime Minister of Canada, he was going to have to, I mean, literally get on his knees and kiss Trump's feet, because we are in a bad situation for the reasons you just outlined. And if you live in Canada, and if you're even slightly paying attention, all of these things are very obvious. There's really no money here anymore. And what money is here is all illegal. It's all overseas organized crime, Mexican cartels laundering money through businesses and real estate. That's really what Canada's economy is based on. So what do you see being the dynamic between Carney and Trump? And in your view, as a brilliant money guy, how would you grade Carney's performance on the Canadian economy thus far?
He gets an F-. I mean, Trump's basically going to go to him and say, you guys, if he hasn't already, he's going to say, you guys are completely fucked. What we want is your resources in exchange for border defense. My pitch to the Treasury is make one North American banking regulator, which would be the FDIC, make one North American law enforcement agency, which would be the FBI, make one North American crime unit, that would be the DOJ. The RCMP is worthless. Bank of Canada is worthless. OSFI, which regulates the 5 government banks, they're not public companies. They're just government banks. That operation's worthless. And basically, he'd say, we want to essentially run you, right? You guys can elect whatever clowns you want, but we sort of want to run you. And I think, of course, Carnival Barker will say no, at which point I think Trump could cut a deal with Alberta and Saskatchewan for the resource-based things, trade with them, and Alberta and Saskatchewan will call themselves the Maple Syrup Territory. Mm-hmm. So they won't be a state. I think they'll be a territory. So you'll still have Arctic Mexico, and you'll have 2 territories. There's something called the Northwest Territories, right?
Yeah.
Saskatchewan and Alberta, I think, can govern themselves. I think they run surpluses. They'll cut Ottawa off and Maine, Arctic Mexico at the knees, which, is going to be another impetus for these capital controls. And the United States will trade with the resource-rich territories. What the hell else do they buy? I mean, what do they buy from Ontario? Auto parts? Well, they can make auto parts here, Trump will say. Mm-hmm. I mean, no, he wants the oil. He wants the resources. He'll want canola oil, whatever the hell they do there. That's what I would do, because you can basically bleed Carney out. Because they've done nothing on the fentanyl thing. They're still in denial. They do nothing on the law enforcement stuff. They're still in denial. But this is again, this is what the people want. The liberals own the media. The media ran propaganda, and they fell right into Trump's plan. Trump, he made it look like he wanted double P to be the man. So, of course, the kittens and rainbows in Arctic Mexico voted the other way with the elbows up thing. But again, between EB being beholden to the Chinese, EB giving the Chinese $1 billion to build ferries.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of panda bond money that was done in the Christy Clark era that's still sitting in Asia. I mean, BC is a dumpster fire. EB should bring that $150 million back. The only problem is it's gone. I mean, it's stolen. And everyone wants to play dumb. So, gang, if it wasn't for the U.S. wanting to lower rates and things like that, your currency would be just a complete and utter dumpster fire, and then some. Mm-hmm. But my simple advice is get your money out of there. If not, you get out of there. If not, move to Alberta or Saskatchewan if you can deal with the cold. I mean, that's what I would do, because I think Ontario and Quebec and Maritimes are, I think those places are just it's gonna get really bad. I mean, you look at the streets of Toronto with the, people can demonstrate. There's no natural born Canadians there.
Yeah.
There's, Ole Evinrude doesn't live there anymore. I mean, it's all the people who fled hostile territories. They've moved into Canada, and law enforcement doesn't stop them. They stop the kid skating on a frozen pond in the winter. There's 4 RCMP guys pushing around a 13-year-old, but they just let people block traffic, create mayhem, do the whole damn thing. And then it's so fucking ass backwards. Some guy shoots someone or beats someone up for robbing their home, and they charge the homeowner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's if it wasn't, again, it would be hilarious if it wasn't so damn serious. So if people are going to come in to your home, rape your wife, steal your stuff, do whatever, you're supposed to sit there with your arms folded and watch Don Cherry on hockey, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
I guess so. I mean, what's funny about that scenario is that it's indicative of the Canadian apathetic attitude that's always existed here, right? There's this fantasy of what Canadians, especially Eastern Canadians, have always thought Canada of as being, but that never really existed. And it's a place where people don't invade your home and try to rape your wife and murder your children. Yeah. And when it does happen, it's like, well, you were wrong. What did you do wrong to provoke that? And it's like nothing. There's a lot of bad people in our country now, and we have to figure out a way to either defend ourselves against it or send those people home wherever they're from. And if we can't send them back, then yeah, we have to defend ourselves. But yet again, we don't have, the right to bear arms in most circumstances. We don't have the right to own a handgun. So what it boils down to is I'm just going to beat you to death with a baseball bat in my garage,
Well, when the apathetic decide to wake up by design, they all move at once and the government won't let them move.
Yes.
There's a Netflix special out on Katrina that my girlfriend and I watched episode 1 last night, and it's fascinating how they evacuated New Orleans, or the New Orleans area, before Katrina. They all knew it was going to nail New Orleans bad, but they let the wealthiest people and the whites out first. They told them to evacuate, and then they pushed mandatory evacuation on the poor and the blacks in the city at the very end, and they couldn't get out. And it created an absolute disaster. And those are the people who died. Those are the people who lost the most. Those are people stuck in the Superdome. And I call them the kitten rainbow crowd. You call them the apathetic bunch, the kitten and rainbow crowd. Yeah. They're all going to realize it at once. And then they're going to say, what the hell do we do? And you and Sam and Christine and some people on Twitter you're the vast majority that people should pay strict attention to, but they don't as much as they should. I mean, Sam should have 1 million followers on Twitter.
Yes.
He has
Yes.
under 100,000. You should
Well,
you should have 500,000 followers on Twitter. I don't know exactly what you have. I watch Sam.
41,000.
Yeah. That's pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Because people would rather listen to the CBC or their other bullshit and read the Macro Wrapper, Globe, and Mail. And this is what has gotten everyone in the mess they're in. This is why everyone's in the mess, because they actually thought that immigration and mass immigration was a good thing. They actually believe that.
Yeah.
Rather than realize the byproduct of that. And they thought that the money laundering, as long as it could push housing prices up and way up, that's a really good thing because your asset's worth more. They don't realize the byproduct of that. They don't realize the consequences of that because you can't take it away because the evildoers have the most money in the country. Mm-hmm. The Laurentians and the wealthy people, they all have it in the Caribbean, offshore, in non-tax paying entities. Justin's with his boyfriend, I think, in Costa Rica. I mean, never to be heard from again.
Yeah.
But it's bad. It's capital B, capital A, capital D, and it's getting worse. So
it is. And, you brought up an interesting point in terms of my popularity, Sam's and others. I'll tell you just as a sample, this podcast was ripping for the first year, and mostly because I had on mostly American guests talking about either American or geopolitical issues. And then, with Sam Cooper and others sprinkled in between. When I turned my focus to the Canadian election, which I did because I felt it was the most important election of at least the last 20 years, if not my generation, I lost 65% of my listeners because Americans weren't interested and Canadians weren't listening. And so Canadians watching this, well, I'm slowly getting my American audience back, which thank you guys for coming back. But Canadians, any of you watching this, this is why you are in the position you're in, is because the canaries in the coal mine are being ignored. I completely agree with you. Just to omit myself from the conversation, Sam should be revered in the same way that Matt Taibbi and Seymour Hersh and others are perceived by the general American public. Sam is doing something that I think, I've told him this multiple times, but I think when the history books are written, his name's going to be in it. And it is an absolute tragedy that Canadians are not paying attention to his reporting because he's the only one who's reporting reality in this country.
Well, they'll pay attention to him, but it's going to be too late. It's going to be after the horse has left the barn in Saskatoon and is running circles in Yellowknife. I mean, it's going to be way, way, way too late. I mean, they should do it now. See, the Americans, your thing with the Americans is down because the Americans basically don't care about Arctic Mexico anymore.
They don't.
They kind of realize it's a complete fuck show. They realize it's done. People here are more focused on ICE raids and Trump doing things and things like that. They could care less about Canada. Canada's viewed as a joke. I mean, when he had the people there for the Ukraine bit, I think Canada's given the Ukraine more money per capita than anybody.
Yes.
I think that's the number. They're more dollars per capita than anybody. Hell, Trump didn't even invite Carnival Barker to the show. He didn't even invite him. So that's how low, that's how far down the tubes this whole thing has gone.
Yeah, and what Canadians need to understand is that is a huge sign.
Yeah.
For what lies ahead. And Mark, what you're referring to is the meeting on peace discussions that Trump held at the White House. I think Emmanuel Macron was there. Vladimir Zelensky was there. I can't remember. There were a few others. I think Giorgia Meloni was there.
Everyone was there except for Carney.
Yeah, Mark Carney wasn't invited.
Right.
And meanwhile, Mark Carney is in Ukraine pledging like another $3 billion to this war, and also inferring that they may be sending Canadian Armed Forces troops in the future to assist Ukraine in the fight against Russia, why would you ever even consider that? And not only that, but in Canada, we have virtually no military left. So sending armed forces to the Ukraine can only mean conscription. That's all it could be, right?
I tweeted out that you guys have 138 rowboats. You have 57 canoes. You have 83 Evinrude used 6 horsepower outboards. You have 413 slingshots, and you have a couple DC-3 fighter planes. That's the Canadian Army. Oh, right. and the other thing is these financial wizards sold all their gold at the low.
Yeah.
All the gold, which has been the asset to own.
Yeah.
Canada sold it all at the low.
Yeah.
When Carney had his hands on the switch there. So again, if it wasn't so tragic, it would almost be funny.
Yeah.
And even when the country fails, or however it's currently situated, it's going to change at some point in the not too distant future. Hopefully the people, who are listening to this take note and say, we better make some changes or get the hell out of here. I mean, if you're dead set on staying in Canada, if you're dead set on it, move to Alberta or Saskatchewan. If you're dead set on staying there. If you can think ahead, get your kids, if you have adult kids, get them to the United States somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And or you go with them. That's what I'm telling my friends with money to do there, and I think they're starting to think about it. And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, people don't like leaving Canada. Canadians don't like leaving Canada.
It's complacency. It's fear of the outside world. Look, I'll tell you this, and this, again, Canadians watching this isn't all Canadians, but mainstream Canadians generally have 2 vacation destinations, Las Vegas and Mexico. And they go to Mexico. Mexico is considered like their international travel. And when they go to Mexico, they sit on a resort with other Canadians. Canadians are they're a very isolated population. I mean, we're isolated just geographically, but we're also isolated in terms of our view of the world and the way we see things. I mean, only in Canada and say like Australia and even Britain could things be going the way it's going without a major revolution happening. And it's because Canadians have trained themselves not just into being apathetic, but also into this false belief that everything is fine, and no matter how bad it gets, we'll figure a way out of this. Things will swing up again. But we are in this position now where things aren't going to go back to the way that they were. And I think you're right. Everybody's going to wake up when it's too late. Look, I know a number of millionaires myself, some multi-millionaires. They've all left. They're all gone. If they're not physically gone, all their money is gone. And they're working on physically moving. Anybody who has the means to do so at this point, including myself, are either considering leaving or have already left.
Sam's going to be leaving.
I'm more than likely leaving too.
Sam's leaving, and again, on top of that, look at the pressure you guys are all under with inflation, and you look at the Air Canada strike of how they were trying to treat people. I think there's a teacher strike that's going to be coming up on how they treat them, because the average person who's not a criminal, who's not a millionaire, is up against it. They're up against it in a big way. And and people throw their hands in the air and say, I'd rather restart. I mean, Air Canada left people stranded with no other plan. And there's really, what, 2 airlines? There's Air Canada and WestJet. There's 5 banks. There's 2 cable companies. There's 2 cellular companies. And that's with the place going to hell. And every principle of the majority, they sort of call the shots in the government. The media is paid by the government. The TV stations are paid. Newspapers are paid. They're all propagandalized. I don't know if that's a word.
Propagandized.
Propaganda is so thrown around, there's no one to push up against it.
Yeah.
No one. And again, the trucker convoy, what did they do? They just took people's money. They just froze bank accounts. I mean, even the lawyer who was defending the truckers, they froze her.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing with 5 banks. If they want to freeze your assets, they will. And it's kind of like, what are you going to do about it? Because it's all in this death spiral, and that's really what it is. It's a death spiral.
So you spoke earlier about capital controls. For the audience, can you explain what capital controls are and why we will see them in Canada?
Yeah, it's basically, the government locking down for whatever reason they want to choose. The tools in their toolbox, like Trump's the king. When things get funky, in third world areas, they throw capital controls on where they don't allow you to pull your money out. They don't allow you to transfer assets outside the country and limit, in some cases, how much you can take out of banks at certain points of time. I mean, it goes on in places like Turkey. It's a common occurrence in the third world, and that also comes with a currency collapse, which I think is a given up there. I think it's a given, the currency, because what does Canada have that, 1, backs the currency, or 2, anyone wants to trade with? I mean, if the U.S. isn't trading with Canada, who's going to trade with them? And I strongly believe it happens because I think they're going to use Trucker Convoy 10.0 on people. The only way they put down the truckers on this thing was to take their money, to freeze their bet. When you have your money frozen, it makes it sort of hard to keep fighting in this world. So I think they're not, and that's going to be the way the government is going to keep people from leaving and people from pulling currency out of the country, which is actually going to make the problem much worse. But I think they're stupid enough to actually do something like that rather than own the problems they have. I mean, if you weigh 438 pounds, you need lifestyle change to lose weight, to get yourself healthy. Going from Coke to Diet Coke is not going to do the trick. It's like pissing on a house fire. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So they had a chance to say, we have a problem. We're on our hands and knees to you, Mr. Trump. We want to be your trading partner. What's the ask? What do you want? What is it you want? Short of Canada being the 51st state. And I had suggestions, but no one wanted to play with it at the time.
What are your suggestions, Mark?
My suggestions is the FBI becomes the law enforcement arm. The FBI, DOJ becomes the law enforcement arm. The FDIC runs the banks. When you have anti-money laundering constraints, AML, KYC stuff that they use in the States, you apply that to Canada, where you do bad things to financial criminals in the system, people will, prison has a way of sobering up bad behavior. They got to close the border. I mean, the immigration is just out of control, and they don't even bring in people who are productive to the economy. It goes the other way. So you basically have to reverse all of the Trudeau policies going back, what is it, a dozen years, 10 years, something like that? And basically go to the States and say, we need help, right? We need help. Our borders are out of control. The economy is not good. The CCP basically controls all ends of this thing. I know you guys have a problem with China. We have a huge drug issue, exporting fentanyl and things like that. We at first denied it, but upon listening to Sam Cooper and your podcast with all your guests, obviously things are worse than we thought, and we need to fix it. BC is a disaster. Maritimes are a disaster. And by the way, finding people for walking in the woods is not going to solve the problem. And so on one, get on the hands and knees and say, we really have a mess here, and talk to people that will get out of the mess, but we need help. Or two, stay on the path you're on and the whole thing will collapse. Because the kitten rainbow crowd who's apathetic, when they turn, 80% of the people turn at once, which becomes, how do you evacuate? Calgary's not a good example. How do you evacuate the GTA all at once? You just can't. And the system's leveraged and housing's leveraged and everyone's underwater on their home loans and things like that. And Brookfield has all their money out and it's kind of a fait accompli, as far as I'm concerned, but it's.
Yeah, it feels, like I've been doing a lot of, taking a lot of like a retrospective look at the last decade lately and just trying to assess where we are now. I talked to, off the record, I don't know how to describe him without giving away his identity, but a guy who knows money. And, he has this attitude of, well, if, Alberta and Saskatchewan were to join the United States or become a U.S. territory, then the Trump administration, really all they want to do is strip it of its natural resources and leave them to die and leave them to starve. And I think that's the attitude of a lot of the elite class Canadians, even if they know they're not telling the truth, that's at least what they're saying. How do you respond to that, Mark? Is it a situation where if Canada were to somehow amalgamate with the United States, would it be a situation where it's just a rape and pillage scenario and then, Alberta and Saskatchewan are left hanging?
Well, Queen Smith, on the exit, basically can say we will print our own currency and we'll back our currency by resources. Let's just call it oil. So for lack of a better word, and if you're listening to Queen Smith, this is a pretty decent idea. You can use, let's just call it a petrodollar, right? That whatever currency they print in terms of currency, they have a surplus. So they could say our currency is not backed by the full faith of the US government or the Canadian government, which is a confidence game. Our currency will be backed by oil. We're going to be the Saudi Arabia of North America, essentially. We're not kicking a dime to Ottawa. We will build our little itty bitty military, right? We will cut a favored nation status with the US, and all will be good. We will open the border with the US and we'll bring our pal Saskatchewan with us. There is not a chance in hell Trump wants to make Alberta and Saskatchewan worse than base Canada. And it would sort of be hard to do. short of a military takeover, and that's not in the United States' interest. That's not the way Trump would roll. Again, he's transactional, so there's a transaction to be done. He's theatrical, so this would be huge theater.
Right.
And most Canadians, I think, would be happy being. I think they'd be happier being partners with the United States rather than partners with the Arctic Mexicans on the East Coast. I think when you really strip it down, people would say, "Yeah, we're giving up our sovereignty, but hell, there's so many brown people who've infiltrated the East. You know, there's so many evildoers now in the country. What is Canada anymore? What really is it? It's not the Paul Bunyan, Ole Evinrude crowd. It's just not.
Yeah.
It sure isn't on the East. And what does Manitoba have? Zip, right? I mean, what do they have? So to me, it's Saskatchewan, Alberta, and you have the Chinese colony known as British Columbia. And you know, the United States could clean up BC, knock Eby out, put him in prison for being a spy and espionage. But that's what I would do. So I think your money guys, you know, there's always a crowd to say no. There's always a crowd to say But my thing would be, I think Trump would want to cut a deal. And I think Queen Smith is ballsy enough to do a deal in her interest, and they both go down in the history books and just kind of rewrite the map. And it makes sense. I mean, you could pipeline. What is it? Alberta wants to run a pipeline through BC, but BC says no. You run a pipeline down, you know, through Montana, through where I live, and you know, becomes the number one trading partner. And then what happens to base Arctic Mexico? Then what happens? What happens to Arctic Mexico if Alberta were not to send another dime to Ottawa? Then what happens?
It collapses, right? You know,
or something close to it.
Oh, it indefinitely. I mean, what did Danielle Smith say in that press conference? Alberta's sending $27 billion to Ottawa and Quebec year over year, and look, that's
well, she sends it to Ottawa. Ottawa sends it to the Ukraine. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. That's basically where it goes, right? Yeah. She sends the money to Ottawa. Ottawa sends it to the Ukraine. And what does Alberta get for that?
Nothing. I don't know if you've been here recently, but it's I mean, Alberta is kind of, so in Canada right now, Alberta is kind of like that hidden oasis, the place where people are coming to for refuge from Vancouver, Toronto, and other places, right? And now we're in this position where we are sinking too. And it's
it's too much on that infrastructure. I mean, greater Calgary is what, 1 million people?
I think it's 1.3 now, yeah.
Okay. 1.3. I mean, to me, they have oil, they got parks, they got Alberta beef.
It's just everybody wants to be here, and I get it. And, you know, going back to your earlier point, Western Canada is more closely related culturally to the United States than it is to Eastern Canada. BC, for all its faults, it has more in common with Washington and Oregon than it does with any other provinces in this country. Alberta and Saskatchewan are more closely related to Montana, Wyoming, and Wisconsin than we are Eastern Canada. And that's always been the issue, is that we are two countries inside of a country.
Well, therein lies the solution. Therein lies the solution, because if you stay on steady state, she says they do 27, let's just call it 25 billion a year. You guys have kicked how much to Ukraine since the war?
Oh, I don't know in total, but it's a lot. I mean, we're talking billions and billions. And actually, Mark, while we're on that subject, before you go into your next bit here, I did want to ask you, I mean, in your view, knowing how these things work, how much of this aid, let's say this new 3 billion pledged by Mark Carney to Ukraine, how much of that is money laundering? How much of that is being embezzled into the accounts of oligarchs and things that Canadians would be furious if they knew where their money was actually going?
About 109%.
Right. Right. So like
So if they've sent 3 billion over, probably 3.3 billion is stolen,
right.
into bad hands. And see, the thing is I haven't heard one reason why Canada is even playing with Ukraine, given the population. Now, there may be some Ukrainians buried in Medicine Hat, maybe, but everything I see and I know is you have the CCP has infiltrated BC. People in Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, not many people. I mean, there's just not that many people.
Yeah.
Then we talk about the GTA. Those are, I'll be kind, say, Mideastern, Indian, East Indian, throw a little Vietnamese and Russian in there. Quebec, take your pick. Then you have the zombie state, in the Maritimes. So I don't see, given how messed up Arctic Mexico is, charity begins at home. I mean, the problems in Arctic Mexico are severe. The charity needs to be toward the Canadian people and the infrastructure and get the country on its feet. It doesn't need to go to the Ukraine.
Right.
Ukraine. It makes no sense, but yet it keeps on going. So
Well,
you have to say, why is this? This
yeah.
makes no sense. And the answer is the 20 wealthiest families who run Canada want to see it that way because the money probably then backdoor goes into them.
There
Right?
it is.
It probably circles back to the wealthy families who actually run Canada with elbows down, elbows up, elbows, carnival barker.
And
So it's not. I'm not a Harvard guy. This is not that hard to figure out or walk through. But I urge everyone who listens to you, follows you, Sam, the whole thing, think hard, because the sooner everyone gets their aha moment, like, aha, this is a mess, unfixable, and although it's sunny outside, the storm is 400 miles away and it's a coming. And by the time it gets cloudy and the wind picks up, it's too late.
Yeah.
And that's the best way I can say it, sum it up, and and do the whole thing, because it's so far worse now than when it was the last time I was on here.
Yeah.
It's like not even, I mean, US, as you said it, US doesn't even pay attention to Canada.
No, they don't.
It's not even in the top 40 worry about issues. It's just,
No, I think Americans would be more interested in hearing about the news in Lithuania than they would in Canada. And that's the thing that Canadians, especially metropolitan Canadians, need to wrap their minds around. Nobody gives a fuck about you. Nobody cares.
that's exactly right.
And we're entering a privation scenario. We're entering, like, that's where we're going, guys. And nobody fucking cares about you. And not only that, but all the money that was here that might have helped us out when we hit the bottom is leaving. It's all going away.
It's leaving, all right.
And so what we've done is we've destroyed our energy sector, i.e. Alberta. We've destroyed that are the engine that runs our economy to a point now where even Alberta's a lame duck. Like, I'll be honest with you, I listened to Danielle Smith do her thing, and I am at a point with her where I am like, how much of this is just political mind tricks and lip service, and how much of this is because what Canada needs, and I say not just Canada, but the UK, Australia, all of the Western nations, we all need Trump figures, whether we like it or not, right? Because what we need is strong men and strong women who are going to say, no, fuck that. We're not doing that. We're not playing this game anymore. We're not doing this dance. I don't give a fuck about what's legal, because none of these forces that are at work here, none of these corrupting forces are following the law. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut all this shit off now.
That's what she should do. I mean, to the extent that I know she talks to Sam or reaches out to Sam, you and Sam should get her on for a...
I've tried.
We'll try harder.
Yeah. The problem is that in Canada, again, we are so fucking far behind the rest of the world, and we have our heads so far up our asses that in Canada, people like me are still viewed as the alt-right Nazi conspiracy theorist types, and politicians won't talk to people like me on the record. I have a lot to talk to me off the record, but they won't talk to me on the record because they're afraid of what it'll do for their career. And when I hear that, that tells me that you are thinking for self and not for your fucking country.
That's for sure. Well,
my platform is one where I will not lob softballs. I will have a real discussion and ask you honest questions. And they don't want that. They're afraid of that because they're afraid of what it'll do for their reputation.
Well, look how smart you're going to look with all these podcasts you've done. When the stuff really hits the fan, then you can just walk around and tell people to look at the scoreboard.
To be honest with you, I just hope that it's Sam's name that's on the scoreboard, because he's the one who's done the work.
The scoreboard, what I mean by that is, you were right, and you were right for the right reason, and Sam has been right, and Sam's been right for the right reason. Hell, I'm not even Canadian. I just feel bad for everyone up there, because it's not that hard to, there's zero in it for me. I'm not short the ridiculous Canadian dollar. I'm not short anything in Canada. I wish everyone nothing but the best, but it's just kind of... It's following the flight path that I thought it would, except now it's just sort of accelerating. So,
and so I was reading one of Sam's recent stories this morning about this Asian transnational criminal figure who escaped Mexican custody. He was on house arrest for being a major player in the international cocaine and fentanyl distribution. Yeah. And the Mexican government put him on house arrest. He escaped through a hole in the side of a wall into a tunnel and fucking disappeared. And you know what it reminded me of? Canada. I was like, that is 100% something that would fucking happen in Canada. So, Mark, I know you got to get running pretty soon. So from an American perspective, the United States is surrounded by two countries that are so cartoonish that they don't even exist as a parody of a parody. How does the United States deal with this? And I know that we've already kind of talked about it with Trump and everything, but I mean, going forward into the future, what do you see happening between the United States and Canada and Mexico?
I think Trump's going to make a power play, and I think he's going to do it with Queen Smith. I think things are going to get so out of control. I think people will go to her and just say, why don't we do this? And then she leaves Eastern Canada high and dry. Mexico is all, that's why I call Canada Arctic Mexico. I mean, Mexico's always been a fucked up place. They're actually doing sort of a little better.
Yeah.
He's gonna bully them around a bit with the cartels and things like that. But Trump went into office. It was probably worth $3 billion, $4 billion. He's probably worth $30 billion now, maybe $40 billion. He's 80 years old. He's got all the money he needs. He's got his legacy. He's not going to run again. I think he's going to start pushing people around. I mean, he's theatrical, transactional. So I think the theatrics of him controlling what he wants in Arctic Mexico is a big deal. And I think the transaction could benefit Alberta and the United States. So I think there's a deal to be done. And I think he's going to make Carney, who's a little man, look little and weak. He's going to break Eastern Canada in half. And he's, Alberta and Saskatchewan is all he wants. So they're not going to be states. No way. They'll be territories. But, it's going to be a plus there, and they'll have their own currency. Mexico, I don't know. Mexico is a whole different ball of wax, but we'll see. What is it? Kind of September 1? Yeah, we should do a year-end round.
Yeah.
We'll get Queen Smith on, and I'll reach out to her through Sam.
I would love to. I've reached out to I've reached out to Justin Trudeau. I knew that was never going to happen, but I reached out.
That's a week.
Where I'm at with this is that I talk about these figures a lot, and I would love to give them an opportunity to speak their piece directly to me and to people who want to listen. I've reached out to Pierre Poilievre. I've reached out to Danielle Smith. No reply.
Well, and maybe when they throw capital controls on, maybe people will pay more attention.
But that's exactly like what you just said. It's by then it's too late.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's too late. Now the anchor's down. We're stuck. We are where we are, and that's Look, as a writer, I never had an interest in Canada because I knew what Canada always was. Even 20 fucking years ago, I knew what it was. And so I set my focus.
How old are you? I only thought you were about 25.
I'm 42. I'm 42. Oh, Thanks, Mark.
You look good.
Making me feel good, man.
You look good. I'm 97 and I young.
But I came back to paying attention to Canada during COVID because I felt that there was an important conversation that needed to happen. And I began having that conversation. And what happened to me was as soon as I leaned too hard into Canada, I lost everybody.
Yeah, after this, you'll get them all back. We'll get you hopping again.
Well, no, I mean, I'm on the upswing, but it's because I'm shifting my focus away from Canada onto the United States and the rest of the world, back toward the outside world. And what I'm saying is the true tragedy here. And again, I want to omit myself from the discussion because I realize that I'm a layman, right? But you have people like Sam Cooper at work in your country, and if Sam leaves Canada and even starts taking his attention away from Canada, you are losing one of the great journalists of this generation, period, bar none.
He's going to leave the country, but he's going to keep going.
Right. But this is the other thing, you want to talk about Sam. Like Sam is in a position where his life has been threatened on multiple occasions. And we have a neutered federal police agency that won't do anything to help him. Not only that, we have a federal police agency that blocks investigations from American law enforcement once they start looking into what's happening here and start trying to track down these transnational criminals because they're all in Canada. And so the point is that we are in this place where the fantasy is over and Canadians have to reconcile the last 20 or 30 years of what without losing touch with reality.
No, I get it. Sam's got me. You know what I'm going to do, and then I gotta hop. Yeah. There's someone on Twitter, I think it's at Arctic Mexico. They make a great sweatshirt. You got to give me your address. I'm going to have them send you a sweatshirt. And I think on this thing, you got to start wearing Arctic Mexican.
I will. Mark,
I'm going to reach out to Arctic Mexico, their clothing line, and I'll buy you a sweatshirt.
Oh, my brother.
They're really well made. I think you'll be the only one on your block to have one. And maybe I'll get Queen Smith's address and I'll send one to Queen Smith.
Well, I'll tell you this. The day that sweater arrives here is the day you will see it on this podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me, though.
Yeah, Mark, before we go, tell everybody where they can follow you on X.
At Alder Lane Eggs.
That's right.
ALDERLANEEGGS. I keep it jumping. And again, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I just sort of say it the way it is. So.
Well, you know what? I think, Mark, if people get offended, they should be, because they need to be told the truth and need to start facing reality here. Like, we are in a bad spot. And I think Canadians should feel very, very fortunate that somebody like you, an expert, who specializes in spotting fraud has set his focus on Canada, because without guys like you, Marc, nobody would ever know what's going on. You know, and I know
I'm loved and hated, so I guess I'm doing something.
Hey, man,
As long as you like me, I'm in good shape. You and Sam, I'm good.
Well, somebody once told me it's better to be hated than it is to be loved, because that shows that you're on the right track.
I'm on the right track.
Yeah, Marc, thank you as always for your time, my man. And I mean what I say. I think we're very, very fortunate to have your voice out there pointing to these issues, because were it not for you, I don't think a lot of people would be aware of what's actually happening here. So
do my best. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's rope in Danielle Smith and touch base in a couple months.
Queen Smith.